If you're a defense manufacturer, then this session is specifically for you. My name is Greg Tomchic, CEO at Valor Cybersecurity, based in Norfolk, Virginia, and extremely excited about this session around defense manufacturing. So when we started Valor in 2021, we were focused on defense contracting overall. And what we realized is there are specific supply chains that need our services and expertise the most. One of those being defense manufacturing, and a subset of that being the shipbuilding, shipyard industry. And a lot of these defense manufacturers provide products that go into either shipyards or production of bigger products, drones, airplanes, weapons, things of that nature. And when you start to dissect the defense industrial base, what you start to realize is a lot of the critical constraints, a lot of the large impacts on mission readiness at the end of the day, which is what we ultimately want to support, getting the ecosystem more mission ready than they are today. And that's what we do each and every day. Most of these choke points, most of these threats are ultimately at the tier 3 through tier 4 type suppliers. Obviously, tier 2 and tier 1 provide a lot of risk because they have bigger pieces of the pie of that supply chain or contract vehicle. But if those tier 3 and tier 4 suppliers are not able to get the materials, whether that's metals, powders, paints, things of that nature that go into the assembly, the final assembly of these defense products, then that is ultimately where the chain breaks. And we've seen that through investigating incidents and being involved at various levels of the supply chain, from tier 1, so the 8 prime contractors, Lockheed, General Dynamics, the ones you are all familiar with if you're in this space, but also below them, kind of the folks that are doing the assembly that eventually might get inspected by a tier 1, and then those tier 3, tier 4s, all the way down to tier 7, which could be the additive manufacturing piece, the piece potentially where they're taking sand and turning that into some type of material that eventually goes onto a mold, that goes onto a piece of product, that goes onto a ship or an airplane, for example. But this supply chain is much broader than just tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, which is what a lot of people see. So we decided about a year and a half ago to say, and really draw our line in the sand to say, we are the specialist cybersecurity readiness partner to defense manufacturers. And why did we go out in the market and say that? Out of the almost 100 companies we've served, defense industrial base, defense contracting companies, since 2021, we found that a majority of our client base, I'd say more than 1/3 of our client base, has been defense manufacturers, and that could have multiple subsidiaries that produce niche products within that manufacturer or within that manufacturing supply chain. But ultimately what we're doing is we're going to the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 and saying, who do you work for, or who do you depend on to downstream to actually get this product to your next step, which is then going to go to its next step. So we've really started to map out these critical supply chains like shipbuilding, like energetics, weapons production, production of aircraft carriers and planes. And we've really found that there's a lot of areas of expertise between the connections that the balls are being dropped. So we have gone out to the market and really found the right team that says each of us are experts within the defense manufacturing space. Defense manufacturing is the production of products that are going to go on some type of defense vehicle or thing that is going to carry out a part of a mission. And it's an extremely fascinating space that I have found very few people, very few teams have niche expertise in. And when you go in one of these environments, whether there's an economic development initiative to build a new manufacturing facility or it's an existing one, there is a supply chain of equipment, modems, CNC machines, third-party vendor systems that are producing these pieces and parts. You have tooling, you have molds, you have all types of data that's flowing through on test data. So it becomes a very specific space that needs to be understood in order to actually first protect it And then on the back end, that compliance piece, CMMC, which everybody is talking a lot about right now. And there are some strategies that we've found that are specific to these manufacturers to both minimize scope, but also make sure they don't make mistakes throughout the protection and then the compliance process. And what I wanted to put on this session is just to briefly talk through some of the things we've learned in defense manufacturers. First and foremost, you do your best to minimize the scope. So that first step that we always take companies through in the first month, sometimes 2 months if it's a more in-depth scoping exercise, is where does sensitive information flow and how do we keep that off of the manufacturing line potentially? There's anonymization, there's cataloging, there's control off the shelf, so COTS exemptions that can take place. And because we started the company, we were doing a lot of foci mitigation. So a lot of these foreign-owned production companies or service providers in the defense space really had to think about where is data flowing and how do we segment it from going outside of U.S. borders. And that uniquely set us up to have the models, the structures, to ultimately be able to go into these manufacturers, speak their language, talk to their executives, help them understand the dollar by dollar or sometimes cent by cent benefit of actually doing this compliance and protection exercise. And when they do it, some of them go about it by charging more for each unit that they're selling, or they put it into their contracts as an additional line item that this is something that is required and needs to be paid for by the end customer for me to actually go about doing the compliance piece. Obviously, the protection piece should be done because that's what you need to do in business, but it doesn't always happen. So we always, go in. They're looking for us to treat the symptom, and we want to come in and treat the root cause. We oftentimes find a lot of operational efficiencies. These are very advanced engineers that have built these assembly lines for whatever product is in scope here. And we get to talk to these engineers about how it was structured, what vendors they depend on with which type of machining, the molds, how this equipment could go down, what would be the threat if this part of the line goes down and this doesn't, how much of it is manual versus automated. Obviously, we're seeing a lot more automation these days. So once you get past that scoping piece and are able to make a really informed decision with the right expertise at the table, then you start to tell the implementation, the technical implementation and changes that need to be made, and then the actual audit narrative. So what's your security and protection narrative is ultimately the story we're telling on the behalf of our client base that are in defense manufacturing. And we tell those stories every day. So we'd love to be able to share what we're learning with folks like yourself to be able to give you a leg up as you're approaching this process so you can continue to produce the great things you're manufacturing and put them into the front lines or somewhere in the mission set to continue to benefit the defense mission and the warfighter. So that's ultimately why we're here. I wanted to put on this session to talk specifically about defense manufacturing. We're also going to have a session specifically on shipbuilding and shipyards and some of the challenges that they face. But a lot of companies that we go into from a manufacturing standpoint say we shouldn't have these requirements because they may not be tier 1 or maybe even tier 2. And there's a real way to actually structure this so that it doesn't become as much of a burden as it's become in the past. Some things operationally need to change if you're going to do business with the Department of War. And we help make those changes and manage that cultural change that comes up. So if you're a defense manufacturer, you still haven't gotten started, you're looking for that first step, definitely download our scoping guide. I'll make sure that link is either on LinkedIn or on YouTube for you to have that scoping exercise to take your team through, use some of those defense manufacturing specific strategies that we've developed. And as you go forward, we're always here for your questions. My name's Greg Tomchic. Stay safe, stay secure.